How do you talk to yourself when you're feeling like you messed up? Are you somebody who's tough, critical, uses language like "I'm so stupid," and beats yourself down? Or are you somebody who's warm, kind, and self-compassionate in those moments? I used to have a friend who would run a social experiment where he'd ask people, "What's your default inner critic?" Most people say negative, a few people say neutral, and even less say positive. And this is really sad because I fundamentally believe that the way you talk to yourself on a regular basis largely dictates how you feel about your self-worth and how happy you feel in your everyday life. And if you're someone who struggles with those things, you might believe that you're fundamentally stuck this way or that it means something much deeper about yourself, when oftentimes I find it's just a habit that's been ingrained for potentially decades. You've probably had that negative inner voice for most of your life. Imagine you had a boss and every time you maybe made a small mistake or were trying to learn something new, they made you feel small. They were like, "Oh my God, you're a failure. You're never gonna get this. How stupid." So how are you gonna feel? Miserable, demotivated, and not capable. And maybe some of you don't even have to imagine that, and you've actually had that experience at work like I have. Now I understand that that's not easy to break. We're often hardest on ourselves and we feel like these things are true in the moment. That's why I believe when people give the advice of like, just think positive or don't have those thoughts, it generally doesn't work. Those beliefs are deeply ingrained, so I think you have to first challenge them and see how they're not true. One of the best ways I found to do that is to imagine the scenarios where you are hardest on yourself. Maybe that's when you went to go talk to somebody and you feel like you really fumbled that conversation, or you try to hit a new personal best in your fitness, you didn't do as well on that test as you had planned. Maybe you try to make a move on a date and you got turned down. Now I want you to remove yourself from the equation and picture one of your best friends in those exact same situations. How would you talk to them? Can you even imagine shitting on those people and making them feel terrible? I highly doubt it. In fact, whenever I ask anyone this question of if they talk to a friend the way that they're talking to themselves, the answer is always no, and the exact opposite. They'd show them love and kindness. And that's where your self-limiting beliefs start to crumble, because if you can't imagine your friend doing something exactly the same way you would and then chastising them for it, then you have no right to do the same to yourself. I want you to do something for me. Over the next 7 days, I want you to be mindful of the moments where you're being self-critical. And instead, I want you to ask yourself the question, how would I talk to the person I care about? When you do, you're going to find language like, "It's not that big of a deal. You can always try again. I'm proud that you put yourself out there. It shows a lot of courage and it means that you're growing. Nobody's perfect. You're going to keep getting better with experience. You're a badass for even attempting that." The more often you can replace that self-defeating language with self-empowering language, you'll change your mindset and that'll become the default way that you view yourself. And even if you didn't catch yourself in the moment, you can still say like, "Well, wait a sec. Let me try that again," and be much more compassionate. Fine to start by saying these things inside your head, but at some point I think you should also practice saying them out loud so you can really hear those words coming out of your mouth and you really feel them to your core. Some people like to journal where they set like 5 minutes aside in the morning or in the evening just to write 2 or 3 things that they're proud of that they did that day. Don't overthink it. The most important part is just trying to get as much volume as possible, being positive to yourself. This practice is well known in the field of psychology, and studies show that if you can keep this up even for a little while, then you will be more motivated, less depressed, and have better mental health. If you wouldn't say some mean shit to your friends, don't you dare say those words to yourself. Now, if you find yourself still struggling with some negative experiences, especially around things like romance, check out my video here on how to face failure and rejection in dating.